All fleets reporting in, sir.
Never before have so many come together from all quarters of the galaxy. But never before have we faced an enemy such as this. The Reapers will show us no mercy. We must give them no quarter. They will terrorize our populations. We must stand fast in the face of that terror. They will advance until our last city falls, but we will not fall. We will prevail. Each of us will be defined by our actions in the coming battle. Stand fast. Stand strong. Stand together. Hack it out.
Welcome back to the Asterion Labyrinth. My name is Kalex, your host. Today we're going to be talking about, of course, the Valko saga. And the latest entry in this, well, you see, Infold really just doesn't seem to understand you're not getting out of this easily. They're gonna try. They're gonna try their hardest to just manipulate us into forgetting all about Valko, manipulate us into thinking that we can't do anything, they want us powerless. I say, screw the heck out of them and just keep on going. First subject I want to broach is the Game Comms event. We know that Infold's going, and a lot of people don't like that. To be entirely honest, I'm of the opinion that they shouldn't go because what they've been doing has been just straight heinous.
You take a look at this fellow here. Now, was that civilized? No, clearly not. Fun, but in no sense civilized.
But let's be fair, for like the first of the year, they were actually pretty good, somewhat. I was not playing, lads. I was not involved until Valko came along, and then, well, let's be fair, just lock and load, and you don't mess with the Wolfpack without dealing with the Fangs, okay? Now, why is Infold going? I'm going to try to explain something really quick. They're likely being forced to go because they have obligations to be there. More than likely, that comes from the topic we're going to be talking about today. And so if you want to know why, stick around. It's going to be enlightening, but due to obligations because of that. Now, more than likely, they're also going because it's considered safe waters by the powers that be. They think that because Infold had managed to gain a award last year in 2025 for being the best mobile game, I think that was, I'm not entirely sure.
I'm here to accept an award of some kind.
Look, I'm gonna tell you something. I hope that every Valkyrie, every Anhanyar, every single person that goes there, that wants to improve the game, that wants people to have a voice, to make that place a living hell for Infold. Not the cosplayers, not the people who are behind the booths. They're innocent. No, do not get me wrong. Have fun at Gamescom, okay? If you're gonna go there, have fun. Check out the booths. But make it very clear when it comes to Love and Deepspace. You want Valko. And the revenue has been showing that. Make it incredibly clear that you want Valko. You want the company to listen to you. That Global has a voice, whether Info and Paper Games likes it or not. Let them hear it.
Yes.
Say it again.
Yes! Now, what are we actually going to be talking about today? We're going to be talking about the Chuhai Mandate, which basically means go to sea. So basically, this is the mandate I've been talking about in the previous entry as to why they can't just shut down global servers. They are legally unable to do so because of this mandate. So, back in March of this year, 4 Chinese ministries jointly issued the official 2025-2026 catalog of key cultural export enterprises and projects. This list features exactly 98 game companies and 15 flagship titles designated as state-funded cultural exports, and is under that ladder the flagship title that is dictating Infold and Paper Games' global trajectory. They are not doing this because they want to make more money. They do, but they're doing this because more or less their government told them, hey, you guys actually have a very good global presence. You're hitting into a market that isn't really tapped all that much. Atome Games. We may not like them because we think they're actually causing birth rate decline, which no, that's not actually the reason. But you could go out and literally force them to other people, you know, to the global, to our economic enemies and our future enemies like the United States, you know, in order to bring influence and make them more amicable towards us, right? I mean, it makes sense.
3 or 4 times, maybe.
I gotta pump those numbers up. Those are rookie numbers in this racket.
Being on this list isn't just an honorary title, though. It grants massive corporate backing, local tax exemptions, and access to Shanghai's cultural going global specialized grants.
No, so crazy as you look.
I told you, I'm a
Man of my word.
These grants are so lucrative that it's likely one of the reasons why Infold got hit so hard by the daggone water armies when the initial boycott blew the heck up. Because we know now that, yeah, one, it was way too organized, two, there's way too many children, and three, they literally don't have any type of economic power. We just saw that on the very first day of freaking Rafayel's banner. I feel bad for the aunties. Not really. But they can screw off. Now, according to China's Ministry of Commerce report, China's self-developed game exports reached 20 billion in 2025. Over 35% of all user acquisition spending in the global mobile app ecosystem now comes from Chinese developers. Going global, Chuhai is a state-funded survival tactic to dodge domestic growth caps. Yes, for a country that has over 1 billion people, you can have growth caps, and we are actually going to see that when it comes to lads, that this has already happened in China for this game, hence global.
Cat's out.
But we're just going to continue on. So with this idea, you can understand why Valko was created, because the studio wanted to capture the incredibly lucrative dark romance paranormal fiction market. Think of like the Twilight fandoms.
I love you, Edward.
And I love you, Bella. Hold on. Who is it?
Oh, you know. A real fucking vampire.
This market is historically untapped by East Asian otome games, which heavily relies on modern urban realism and historical fantasy. Why? Because when it comes directly down to China, they like to heavily suppress anything of the supernatural or paranormal. So yeah, ghosts and all that other stuff, that gets heavily censored and that gets completely toned the heck down, or just completely straight out blocked.
You shall not pass!
Werewolves, vampires, all that other stuff. Despite the fact there's I think there's actually some story about Chinese vampires. I think they consume qi, I'm not entirely sure. They're sort of heavily suppressed because they don't want those ideas infecting the general populace that, they can be, hot, or they can be lovely, or they can be attractive, because I guess they believe it'll cause far more thoughts of the ideal perfect man when it comes to women, rather than just find a guy, make a few babies, and go on and don't do anything else, just keep reproducing. Which is why they kind of hate otome games. Oh my gosh, even though, a lot of people who actually play otome games are actually in relationships and even marriages that are rather healthy. So it's a little bit interesting. But here is the thing. Infold is in a trap. It's a trap of its own making. And it's a little interesting because when we think of an otome game, we think of a game where the main love interest being a woman and you have a whole bunch of males and you have a harem and all that other stuff. And you can just have virtually anything else going on with the story so long as the romance aspect and element are there. Except in China, it's a little bit different.
No shit, Sherlock.
You see, in Chinese domestic markets, otome isn't just a tag. It is an ideological subculture. The core rule is absolute emotional safety.
Oh, no.
And an unshakable boundary where the player character is completely protected.
I see the problem.
Oh, do ya?
It kind of goes back to that whole women's safety issue. By being BS, women's safety issue. And it also makes sense as to why so many of the aunties are rather rabid when it comes to their love interest, because they provide absolute emotional safety. And I've seen many times how people have said that this game was a lifeline. It was a comfort game. It was somewhere that they'd log in, they would play for a few hours just to relax, just to taper off from the day in order to just, adjust after dealing with all the craziness of life. And it worked. It makes perfect sense as to why it worked so well because of this, because of the safety. Even though you had very dangerous aspects to it and some dangerous thought processes with it, if you go with China's idea of it, yeah, it still worked very well to maintain order and actually cause influence to be created. It's very ingenious that way.
Penny in the air,
But here is where things got bad, because remember that otomes are supposed to give absolute emotional safety, which then comes in Valko and the women's safety issue, because we remember that the Chinese Ministry of Public Security issued an official statement noting that the promotional material for Valko, which depicted him quote-unquote breaking into a player's home, crossed a legal and moral line in domestic advertising.
And the penny drops.
Which, let's be fair here, we know that when it comes right down to it, yes, going onto someone's balcony is trespassing. It's not so much breaking in, but it's definitely trespassing. So, in China, apparently, it's just also just breaking in. I don't know. But that caused a massive issue. It basically took the otome rule and broke it in an instant, despite the fact that all they were doing was basically mirroring Western tropes, because Valko, let's be fair, was meant for the West, because they were trying to follow the mandate. Not only that, but we also have a little bit of interesting situations when it comes to how the game was marketed in the West. You see, in the East, it was marketed as an otome. Again, absolute emotional safety. In the West, they dropped the otome label and instead marketed Love and Deepspace as a sci-fi action-adventure RPG romance game. They pulled in casual mainstream Western gamers who enjoyed tactical combat and fantasy lore, but they are entirely unfamiliar with the domestic otome culture. So, I mean, let's be entirely honest here. This is true. Over the last few days, I actually have played a little bit of the game, and the combat system is good. It's a little, it's a little bit janky. It needs to be fixed a bit. But you have something there that is honestly pretty good combat. Just like the lore, which is very good. I still wish we see Valko's lore, but we see the situation when it comes to it and how it developed. Unfortunately, then you have the idea of your resource contradiction, and this is where resource dilution came in as a key complaint against Valko. You see, domestic players had been begging for story progression for the existing love interest for months. Like, again, 500 days when it comes to the main story in and of itself, only to be told by Infold that resources were tight. When Valko was suddenly dropped with full 3D models and combat mechanics, it exposed a lie. The studio had the resources, but they funneled them into an unannounced asset designed strictly for Western expansion. Except, let's take something into consideration here, it wasn't an actual lie, because Valko was part of the next expansion of the main lore, and the other boys were gonna get their stuff afterwards anyway, because companies don't do these long-standing content droughts for no reason. There is a reason why the main story has been so slow, because when it comes right down to it, if you have a main character who needs to be put in there, you gotta have them available. But basically what they were trying to do was more than likely trying to more or less kill two birds with one stone. They were trying to get him out so that way he can be a love interest, so they can recoup the money, so they can immediately start with the main story and continue on with those in order to give the other boys their main story quests, while not having to hint they would have him as a full love interest from the start with a brand new story in order to continue on with what was going on and giving themselves enough time while capitalizing on the Western market. This would have worked out brilliantly if they didn't wait so daggone long. Like, I'm not even joking. If they had actually announced Valko and then they released him 3 days later, we wouldn't be in this situation right now. We likely wouldn't be. He would be in the game right now, and Infold would be just making a ton of money.
Congratulations, you played yourself.
Now, I've actually been going through this a lot throughout the entirety of these last 6 weeks, and the one argument I've heard time and again is that global isn't needed for lads, that it should have remained a domestic title. But let's think for a moment, okay? Let's put on our thinking caps, let's use logic and actually go down with the numbers and look through this objectively that you would need to do as a company. So we know that there are approximately 1.8 billion people in China. That's a lot. And they currently make up the largest percentage of the game when it comes to revenue spending. But here's the kicker. Before Valko came, the game was naturally tapering off anyway. It was not expanding in China. Instead, they were actually losing players. 2 to 4% month over month. Now that doesn't sound like a lot.
Okay, boys and girls. Here are the rules. Find a penny, pick it up. Double it. You've got 2 pennies. Double it again, 4. Double it 27 times, and you've got $1 million, and the IRS all over your ass. Round and round and round it goes. Where it stops, nobody knows, but it all adds up. Quick.
week.
Now, the funny thing is that when coming down to lifetime downloads, China makes up 41%, while global makes up 59%. But that isn't as bad as it sounds for one key reason. The strange whales are hyper-dense concentrated. They are willing to drop money at a moment's notice, providing 60% of lifetime cash. That's a lot. But here's the thing. It's not sustainable. Not by itself. Because the global whales, on the other hand, they're not willing to drop the same amount of capital. In fact, most of the people who play LADs in the West are more or less tourists. This much is true. They don't spend, but they haven't been enticed enough to spend. And that's where the mandate comes in. The market in China has already been captured so completely that they were starting to lose players. All the while, global's market can continue to grow. After all, there are still 6+ billion people outside of China. That's a whole heck of a lot of revenue that could be brought in if these tourists could be made into actual spenders. Even just casual spenders, even just dolphins. The amount of money that would be made would be ridiculous. And trust me, any company worth its salt would definitely try to capture that market so hard. Well, it'd be like the meteor hitting the dinosaurs. Yeah, no, it is literally that much of a no-brainer. And once that happens, global will overtake the Chinese server easily. Like, no joke, the United States in and of itself is the second largest spender when it comes to basically the entire game. And they're barely even getting started. Yes, LADS is popular, but if it were able to actually get mainstream in the United States, yeah, China has a bigger population. The United States has more money by a long shot. It's hilarious. That's not including every other first world country that could be brought in at the same time. That amount of cash is like El Dorado.
El Dorado.
Yeah, you'd want that. You see, that's the thing. Global has the volume currently in the game, but it has low density because most of them are tourists. Most of them are non-spenders, they're free to play. China has low volume, has lower amount of players, but maxed out density. They can't go any higher. China alone is not enough, especially if you are trying to expand outwards. Let's make this clear. Those aunties in China who are saying we don't need global, Infold is saying, yeah, we do.
I am talking and I'm not listening!
The only thing is that they can't tell them to shut the heck up because the next part. So, we have a core contradiction here, alright? Unfortunately, Infold is in a catch-22. You see, here's the thing. Infold attempted to fulfill its mandate, but because they did that, because they tried with Valko, they ended up getting punished for it, with a revenue drop April to June going from 48 million to 38 million. Then, from June into July, it plummeted to 10 million after Valko was canceled. It is a staggering 73% loss in revenue. We know this. It is horrifying when it comes directly down to a game like this. But it's funny because the domestic mob used the company's official key cultural export status against them, claiming that an edgier character like Valko misused state privilege to appeal to unethical foreign tastes in trying to capture Western revenue. They endangered the domestic legal standing. So literally, they are commanded, go out to global, capture the market, bring in more cash, and pull down positive influence for China. The literal domestic players said are not pandering to us enough, and as a result, Valko got canceled. But the problem is, and when you honestly think of it, it is just, it really does boggle the mind just how stupid some people can be. It really does. Because when you are literally commanded to capture something, capture a territory, capture an area, what is going to happen when you capture it? Ideally, you import your culture into that territory. But the problem is that you sometimes must take that foreign influence. You must take that culture, that aspect, and bring it back to use against the people who you just conquered to sate them. So then that way they're more favorable to you. By literally being entitled pieces of crap who don't use more than 3 brain cells, the antis literally killed Infold's entire situation when it comes to trying to capture the global market, and now they're trying their hardest in order to try to make global spend without making the Chinese people angry because of the fear of differential treatment. Now, was differential treatment. It's exactly as it sounds. You're treating some people different from others. But and this is the funny thing, and when I say funny, I mean the infuriating thing. In Chinese gaming culture, if a domestic studio gives a foreign server exclusive content, like, exclusive character build, or less censored cutscenes, or, something like Valko by itself, the domestic player base will treat it as an act of national disrespect. The studio is branded as foreign pandering, which instantly triggers review bombing campaigns and mass reporting to regulatory offices like the NAAP, which before this mandate, Infold could treat global any way they wished, but they had to literally pat the head, give little cookies, give little blankets to the domestic audience in order to keep from being, hey, you're not pandering to us enough, we're gonna report you. That is some insane entitled. Look, I understand it's not all Chinese people, and I'm not trying to say it's an all Chinese thing, but that's what these antis did. That's what these antis are more or less threatening. It is so stupid. Again, the fact that this is a government mandate. This isn't something the company chose. This is a government mandate. And they said, hey, we don't want this guy. Remove him. Infold in the background is like, it wasn't really meant for you. So now we basically run into what the heck Infold's doing right now. They're trying to manipulate us. They're trying to manipulate every single freaking person in China, in global, they're just trying to manipulate because they can't find a way out of this whole situation. They're commanded to capture global, but they need to integrate some global aspects in order to tap into a market like werewolves in order to actually bring in the big bucks that they are trying to get and to make China look better. But apparently that isn't good enough. Especially for these antis make no sense. So they came out announcing Caleb's solo banner. They basically rushed it out. It was completed already because these things are completed like 6 months in advance, but they just moved up the timeline and it got heavily criticized across the global forum like Reddit and TikTok for what was perceived as a rushed execution. No, this thing was completed months ago, but they had to go back and change a few things after the Valko explosion. So yeah, and unfortunately it was made very clear he was being a sacrifice. He was being a corporate shield in order to try to salvage the pipeline and to show, yeah, these boycotters, these people who want Valko back, they don't mean anything. They're nothing. They have no power whatsoever. Wrong! That didn't work out so well. And then you have Rafayel, his fourth solar man, the Vermilion War God. It was delayed from his late July slot, and the internal company scheduling knew that launching a massive multi-million-dollar card during the height of the global boycott would permanently stunt the banner's lifetime financial return. Now, we know that Rafayel is going to make millions. This is a clear and cut case. There's no way it's going to be avoided. But that doesn't mean it's going to do well in comparison to the other myths, and that is key. You know what? You just gotta love double checking. So it is currently Wednesday, 6:37 p.m. EST, and at this current moment, I was editing the entry and decided to double check the numbers, and it's actually worse than I thought. It is 1.2 million worldwide. That includes mainland China and all the other regions combined, including Android. Now, here's the breakdown of the numbers, and I'm currently keeping track of the progress while, doing the editing. As of current locked-in numbers for day 3, the banner has made, in total, across all 3 days, not just today, all 3 days, 2.2 million. So, if we go over it, day 1 was 1.2 million, day 2 was 725,000, and then today, 284,000.
Simply cannot.
The boycott not only just held, it literally took what was considered the biggest threat and the biggest challenge to it and basically said, well, I believe this meme works very well towards Infold, towards the antis. You know what? Here you go. Sit on it and spin. And Infold is just healing the hell out of this, and I just love it. Look, none of the love interests deserve this. We all know that. None of them deserves this level of disrespect, this level of insanity. No player deserves this level of disrespect and insanity when it comes to trying to play a game that you enjoy. But sometimes you just need to remind them. Just because you're quiet doesn't mean you don't carry a very large stick. Now, back to the entry. Because you see, it got stuck in 9th place on the iOS China revenue chart for overall. Number 5 when it comes to games, but overall 9th. And I think it's actually adjusted and changed a little bit since the last time I checked, like a couple of hours ago. Now, you do not understand how bad that is. Going by historic highs of not just Raphael's banners, not the last Sea God banner. I'm talking about all of them. Historically, this is roughly a 60% reduction. And at this current moment, the Vermilion War God is projected to be the worst revenue-generating myth in LAD's history. This means that outside of some Rafayel Leviathans who decide to spend, which, you know what, I can't really blame you, it is a beautiful one, but I am far more proud of those who actually managed to hold out. Like, seriously. Outside of those Rafayel Leviathans who decide to spend because they deeply want, or some that spend out of pure spite because people cannot handle stuff happening to them, the majority of the spending would come more from completionists and meta chasers. That was always expected. That's why it was always going to make millions, but that's front loaded. Once they got them, there would not be more spending. Well, of course, there's going to be more spending when it comes to Raphael's myth. They're going to keep trying to spend in order to get, you know, the whole collection, but it's not going to end well for Rafayel in this situation. I am not gloating about this. Infold literally made this situation happen. Paper Games made this situation happen. And if you want the game to get better, if you want things to be addressed, if you want to be taken seriously, if you want your voice to be heard and actually be acknowledged, this is what we have to do. You have to keep going. I am sorry, it's going to hurt, it's going to be difficult, it's going to be rough, but you have to keep going. Now let me share with you why this banner stalling at number 9 on its first day is so bad for Infold and Paper Games, but so good for us. Because up until this point, every myth, and I mean every single one, has reached the number 1 spot within hours and held it like with a death grip. Raphael's immediately began slipping after the first hour. It did reach number 1, then it started going down after the first hour. It went down to the 21st, then gradually climbed back up to number 9. Remember that the first 24 to 48 hours are the highest amounts of spending, so there are some people who are gonna try to be doing some more spending like near the end, but it's not gonna be enough. By all rights, with this estimation, not only is Vermilion War God the lowest, but is likely going to remain likely under 13 to 20 million unless more people break the boycott. Now, I'm not gonna drag those who spent on Rafayel, but I would like to remind you all, spending for this, even this idea of it doesn't hurt to spend a little, it does, because it is rewarding a company that's been silent, not just towards global, but to the antis in China as well. A company that has decided that to make the characters that you love into shields to keep their business failures from harming them. A company that has broken promise after promise after promise, treating global like secondary cash cows, lied to the Chinese players, and overall disrespected everyone. And when you do that, even when you spend a little, and even when you get the mindset of spending a little isn't that bad, you are literally telling them the direction they can use to manipulate you by throwing something shiny in your face. I'm not trying to insult you. I'm not trying to make you feel bad. I am trying to make you realize that when it comes down to it, ones who are trying to insult you are Infold and Paper Games because they think you're stupid. You're not. The antis, yeah, they are just dumb, but no, you're not stupid. To really illustrate this point, as Rafayel was released, newer items were released as well to reinforce the idea that spending a little doesn't actually matter, that doesn't hurt, but this is not true. This is a psychological trick called breaking the monetization barrier, and it only highlights their desperation.
You are weak, Corvus.
I am aware, Ferris. Thank you.
They utilize cheap bundle trap, aggressive limited time flash sale, using resource starvation in order to force people to spend as they believe that your resistance is weak. That is why they changed the way the pulls are done. That way you can get something early at 130 pulls and then, just 70 more pulls after that in order to get the full set of cards. Because they think you're stupid. They think you have no resistance. And let's be fair, it is massively insulting, especially for those who have been able to scrape out enough to have 130 pulls to obtain one of the limited cards or to hit hard pity guarantee. But once you have you'd be broke on resources. And that's when Infold dangles a selectable 5-star crate at exactly 200 pulls to force you to get those 70 additional pulls, which requires you to spend. It's a scummy practice, to be entirely honest, and I am disgusted, as it creates a manufactured gap where guaranteed completion reward sits at 200 pulls. It gives the mindset, I've already spent 130 wishes. If I stop now, those wishes were a waste. I'm only 70 pulls away from the full set. And that results in forced microtransactions to make you pull. This shows how desperate they are. This shows how money hungry they are and why they can't be trusted. And once more, one massive light at the end of this tunnel. If there's one massive piece that I would just love to basically stay at the very end of this entry, is this. Once more, the antis have been shown to not only be a vocal minority, but they are the financial minority within the game. They can't even keep the game going for the poster child of the game. Their entire narrative broke down, and now they're coping. Now they're blaming the pro Valko people. Now they're blaming the pro boycott people. Now they're complaining. Now they're trying to cope, saying our allies are still just punishing Infold for daring to create a sixth character. Like, are you dumb? Are you on? Like, are you dumb? It was hinted at in the game, just not by name. So stupid, completely. But yeah, and I am so glad for this, and I can only wait to see how this is going to continue on. Again, Rafayel Leviathans, Rafayel Pawns, Rafayel, whatever the heck you want to be called, you Leviathans, because you're the biggest spenders, and let's be fair, and you are some of the most devoted fans of this game and of Rafayel. So I'm going to call you Leviathans out of respect. You're not a pond, you're not fish. You are Leviathans, you are legendary creatures, at least to my eyes. When it comes right down to it, I am sorry this had to happen to Rafayel. I really am. He shouldn't have gone through this. None of us should be going through this. But unfortunately, at this current moment, it needs to continue. Keep holding on, because the end of this is a destination that is worth fighting for. We all have a nice day. Stay safe, stay cool. I'll see you all next time.